Good morning and welcome to the Paulding County Board of Commissioners Special Call Meeting on this February 4th, 2016. I'll welcome all our invited guests and elected officials. I'm trying to look around the room and see, I think we have a councilman from Hiram, Frank Moran. Anybody else? Mayor. Oh, Teresa, I didn't see you there. Sorry, Mayor Hiram, Teresa Pillion. Anybody else I'm missing? Thank you all for being here. I'll call this meeting to order and turn off all cell phones, Nextels, and pagers. At this time, if you have anybody wishing to speak. Thank you. This morning, if you're able, will you say it with me and I'll lead our prayer. Heavenly Father, may the words of my mouth and the meditation of my heart be acceptable unto Thee, O Lord, my rock and my redeemer. Lord, we ask you today to give us discernment and wisdom. We ask you, Lord, that everything we do in honor of Thee, and always keep that in mind. Be with us as we leave here today and protect everyone, and as we have commissioners that are on the hill, we pray for their quick recovery. In holy name I pray. Amen.
Amen.
I pledge
Allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
It seems like we can only get a crowd in when something's controversial, but I got to tell you that we've had a good week. First of all, day before yesterday, Commissioner Crowe and I had the pleasure of visiting the Richland Creek site where the dam will go, and we visited a hydrological monitoring station, and you know, it was something else. So the beginning of this process, we had the pleasure to be there to film this and kick it off, so you'll be able to watch that on TV. You may have heard us in our last meeting to say that we had some information of confidence that we all agreed to confidentiality. It is now available for the public to hear, but there is a series from Fox Network that the series will be called Home Free, and they will build 8 or 11 houses in 11 days. So 24/7 they'll be working. They're first in the land to be in the back part of a defunct subdivision and give Paulding County some good news, and I think there'll be a way to honor some folks, and when I say home free, they'll get a home for free. So this has been filmed in other states and other places, and they looked at Paulding County and said this is where we want to be. So again, we teased you a little bit by saying there was something exciting happening, and we can now release that information. So you will see the Fox Network here in Paulding County filming this series. There was the series before this one was a remodel type program, and then they gave the house away. But now these will be from the ground floor up. So it'll be very, very exciting. And when you see those Fox trucks and filming and those type of things, it's a good thing. We do have 3 people wishing to speak. So at this time, Carl Gamble, 6676 Brockmart Highway, talking about bond payment. Carl?
Over here?
Yes, sir.
I'd like to say that I'm tired of the county having to pay excessive lawyers, attorney fees, and now a bond payment for frivolous lawsuits. I don't blame Peller Enterprises for pulling out and not paying this if they can't make a profit. And they can't make a profit so long we keep on having objections to this airport. So they pulled out. I don't blame them a bit for it. I'm tired of the taxpayers of the county paying for all these attorney fees for all this frivolous lawsuits on it. I've gone through the EPA, I don't know how many times on it, which is an agency I'm not in favor of anyway. I think it needs to be done away with. And here we are now having to pay $400,000, and then we'll have more bond payments that go on in the future, money that could be better used for other quality of life in this county, like for our fire departments and the police departments, or even for parks and recreation. I think that commercialization should go on through. Let Propeller pay back again, start on the bond payments. Let's get this over with. Thank you.
Carl served us also in the Army in Vietnam, so he's a veteran. Kathy Helms, 191 Opal Road.
Good morning. Good morning. I'm very glad this meeting has been called. I have more questions than I have answers regarding the default on the bond payment by the Airport Authority and Propeller. Let's start with the bond payment the county paid on 2/1/15 for the taxiway expansion. We were told the expansion of the taxiway was a safety issue and it will require a $3 million bond to complete. In February 2014, at a chamber breakfast, Mr. Smith discussed the contracts between Propeller, Silver Terminal Partners, the PCAA, and the IDA. In that meeting, Mr. Smith said the press had made this more into a commercial passenger service, and that was not the focus of what they were doing. It was only a very small part. That Propeller would absolutely go around commercial service if they had to bring jobs. They were going after the Rockwells and the Gulf Streets. In other words, commercial passenger service is not required for MRNO. Mr. Smith said it himself. In fact, Mr. Swafford was discussing running out of money during the initial construction. He explained the taxiway was only 35 feet instead of 50, and the runway stopped 500 feet short. That bond would pay for the expansion until it was reimbursed by the FAA. Mr. Smith then said, as a partner in this quote-unquote marriage, regardless if the bond goes through, he would step up and make payments until the FAA paid us back. There is a separate bond agreement dated October 7th, 2013 to ensure Propeller would make those payments until the FAA reimbursement. It clearly states Propeller would put $500,000 into an escrow account to make those payments. Mr. Swafford said that was never done. He decided without a vote by the Airport Authority that was okay. Decisions such as those are the job of the Airport Authority, not the director. Why is the board allowing the director to make those decisions without a vote? Well, Mr. Chairman, as a member of the Airport Authority, you have a responsibility to the taxpayers to ensure contracts are adhered to. Yet you allowed that contract violation to occur without question. This BOC has abided by the terms of the intergovernmental agreement with the Airport Authority. You, even without knowledge by the rest of the BOC, gave them a payment 5 months early. Between October 2014 and August 2015, they had $800,000. $800,000! Why didn't they reserve enough money to make this bond payment? And why are they not enforcing the contract agreement with Propeller? You can twist and turn this all you want, but the Airport Authority has been lax in their duty to the citizens of this county. They have allowed contract violations to occur without a blink of an eye. This is not the fault of these commissioners. The responsibility lies firmly with you and the airport authority for allowing Propeller to breach the contract required them to make the payments. You and the airport authority cannot use the environmental assessment as an excuse. Why didn't they start with the 60-acre lease contract? Mr. Swafford and Mr. Smith have repeatedly stated the 139 was just a small part of this project. And now there's even question of the validity of the application. Mr. Swafford obviously knew an environmental assessment would be required, although he said he thought the one completed earlier was good enough. I'm certain you called this meeting to embarrass and shame commissioners that had absolutely nothing to do with the contracts or the violations of those contracts. Propeller is obligated to make those payments, and the airport authority is obligated to enforce those contracts. If they cannot do their job effectively, they need to be replaced. This entire debacle is embarrassing, and the contract with Propeller, along with the IGA, needs to be thrown out. It's my understanding the IGA has also defaulted on their payment for the film studio, another catastrophe created by the previous BOC, of which you have been chairman. Will we see a special call meeting about that as well? I hope these commissioners begin discussion with our legislators to dissolve the PCAA and the IBA, both of which you sit on, because they do not represent the citizens. Will your legacy be that you left the citizens of the county broke?
Then we have Greta Leathers.
Good morning, Chairman Austin, Commissioners, Ms. Skipper.
Good morning.
I'm speaking today concerning Silver Comet's breaches of its financial commitments to the citizens of Paulding County and its attempt to shift the blame to certain commissioners. It comes as no surprise that Silver Comet Terminal Partners, better known as Propeller Investments, reneged on their February 1, 2016 bond payment, since they also breached their contract with the Airport Authority in 2013 by not establishing a $500,000 escrow account, which was blatantly ignored and left unenforced by the Airport Authority. What should we expect from a company who withheld their financials and an airport authority who nevertheless opted to do business with them anyway? I recall the 2013 BOC meeting when Commissioner Pownell, the only commissioner at the time who firmly stood against the issuance of the $3.6 million bond, voted no. I also recall that you, Mr. Austin, supported backing Brett Smith and his company, which the Airport Authority failed to do its due diligence on, by using the taxpayers as collateral for a very controversial project in spite of public opposition. As a result, the buck stops with Mr. Swafford and you, Chairman Austin, who are ultimately responsible for this latest fiasco. Yet you both, along with Brett Smith, blame Commissioner Pownell, who has adamantly opposed the proposed commercialization since it was announced, and Commissioners Crowe and Collette, who were not even commissioners until 2015. Not one of these three upstanding commissioners ever voted to approve the $3.6 million bond, nor do they have any affiliation whatsoever with the October 7, 2013 bond repayment agreement between the Airport Authority and Brett Smith, or Mr. Smith's ridiculous transparent excuse for breaching the contract. The October 7, 2013 contract between the Airport Authority and Silver Comet Partners, which was only established as an incentive for Paulding County to back the taxiway expansion bonds, stipulates 6 reasons upon which Silver Comet Partners can legally terminate the agreement. None of those include the county's resistance to commercialization. I'm sure Mr. Smith was more than aware that the county's compliance was required in submitting the 139 application, since Mr. Swafford testified at the bond hearing that the county is the sponsor of the airport. If he chose to ignore that legality, he is responsible for the repercussions, not the 3 commissioners who continue to stand against commercialization, as they always have. Silver Comet Terminal Partners has a legal obligation to make the bond payments, despite the county's backing of the bonds. When asked about the escrow, the unpaid escrow at the February 2015 Airport Authority meeting, Blake Swafford stated, quote, "They're still on the hook to make all the bond payments. They're still committed to make all the bond payments. And as long as they're making the bond payments, I don't necessarily see an issue." Well, now we have an issue. The Airport Authority has a responsibility to the Paulding County taxpayers to enforce this contract. to renege on a contract because things are not going as planned, Mr. Smith has tipped his hand and shown the county the type of businessman he is. And to that we say, no thank you. Mr. Austin, you and Mr. Swafford continually side with Propeller when issues arise. I believe that you work for us, the taxpayers, and not Propeller. We would greatly appreciate it if you would start acting like that.
I have asked Tabitha Pollard, Finance Director, if you would give us a little briefing on the bonds.
Okay.
Oh, I'm sorry. Let me do the rest again. Sorry, no minutes, no announcements, no yes, no old business under new business discussion for the bond payment.
I'm going to give you just an overview of the bonds, and then if you have any questions. The bonds were issued in July 25th. No, 2014. And the bond payments began on February 1st. They were issued July of 2014. Bond payments began on February 1st of 2015, and they are 10-year bonds. They go through February 1st of 2024. In February 2015, there was a payment, principal and interest. Principals due in February. August has just an interest payment. February was $403,710. August was $38,046.50. And those were both paid by Propeller. The county did step in and pay the one due February of 2016 in the amount of $363,070, not $400,000. The $400,000 is the entire interest for the year, and that is not due until August of 2016 for $34,251.25. So the payment now is $363.07.
I have asked Brett Smith, the CEO of Propeller, to come today. I believe he has a check in hand and make a statement to this board. Mr. Smith, would you come forward? While he's coming forward, remember when I got here, this airport was built. Land was purchased in 1972. Now, a lot of people object to where the airport is. A lot of people object to houses being close by there. Most all, if not every one of them, were built after 1972. So when the city of Atlanta owns 10,000 acres, what do you expect for them to do? You expect at some time to have an airport. And so, I live close to a landfill. We all have things that we're close to. This was, and everybody should know it, part of an Atlanta plan to do an expansion at some date in time.
Prove it.
So what we have is an opportunity with an airport where you either let a $50 million asset go or you take advantage of it. And when I got here, I said, I didn't build it, but I'll help it be successful. We made an announcement about the 139 at one of the biggest events that we've ever had in Paulding County at the air show. So no secret there to that. And then all meetings that we had either involved the FAA or the DOT, and they were all the meetings. So at this point, with that little caveat, I've called on Mr. Smith, if you would take a few minutes.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Good morning. As most of you know now, I'm Brett Smith, CEO of Propeller Airports. Thank you for the opportunity to speak directly to you about issues that are important to all of us.
Thank you.
3 years ago, Propeller was invited by Paulding County to develop your brand new airport just right up the road from here. Since that time, we have worked diligently and in good faith and have spent millions of dollars to help Paulding County achieve its dream of developing a successful business that would benefit the entire community. Unfortunately, for whatever reason, this Board of Commissioners has chosen to sue its own airport authority, to force it to abandon its promises, obligations, and contractual commitments. Therefore, instead of Silver Comet providing a huge economic boost to this county, your recent actions are now costing taxpayers a substantial sum of money in legal expense, lost opportunities, and new jobs. To be clear, this is a situation that we did not create. Let me say that again. This is a situation that we did not create. Due to manipulation from the outside and a change in the political winds, the Commission is trying to undo the very thing that we were asked to do. How can any member of this board possibly expect Propeller to make bond payments when you are doing everything in your power to prevent the authority and Propeller from performing their contract? With all due respect, given the recent decisions this board has made, we won't financially underwrite an airport that you want to go to waste. It's not reasonable. With that said, as the chairman had mentioned, I do have with me a check payable to the Paulding County Airport Authority for a little over $363,000. Nothing, and I mean nothing, would make me happier than to deliver this to the authority today. But guys, you need to abide what we originally agreed to develop the airport, and that does include passenger service. You know, I truly pray that you end this litigation and allow the authority and Propeller, and you as well, to participate in building this airport, to create these jobs, and to make Silver Comet Field the success it can be. Not only for us in this room, but for everybody in this community. When people talk and they sit down and they come, there's ways to come to agreement. Everybody doesn't get what they want. But you have to be able to talk. The media, the county is just, it's nonsense. And it's ripping the county apart, and it's unnecessary. And that's all I have to say. I hope in your wisdom you will think about this, and we can deliver this check, and we can get going with the business at hand, and start helping over 15,000 people in this community that are below the poverty line. Thank you.
That's not way to conduct yourself. We do have Jester here to bring a check to the airport authority. And now I'd like to open it up to the commissioners for discussion. We may or may not stand on being able to move forward, or are we willing to continue to make findings?
Yeah, I'll start the discussion. And you know, Brett Smith, I do agree. You didn't know the whole story when you came here because they didn't tell you the whole story. I think you should have done a little more due diligence, and I think the person you talked to should have been more honest with you. Now, people in this county were promised that if you let it fill an airport, it will stay a general aviation airport. We will not go for 139. We were promised that. Then we have certain elected officials and appointed officials that decided to break that contract, break that promise, and do it anyway. There was another promise made to the city of Atlanta. We got in a situation we need to buy some land from them to finish the airport. Well, the promise was made to the city of Atlanta, and I understand Blake Swafford was part of that promise. I've heard that you were part of it. Blake, I'm sorry, I heard it. That's what I heard. I heard you were. I got 3 people going to testify that you were. Now, I was told that the city of Atlanta said, we'll save the land with 2 conditions. 1, don't compete with us, and 2, don't do a 139. And we as a county made a promise to them that we wouldn't do that. And just because the city of Atlanta made a mistake, forgot to attach that land restriction to the deed, there's people who want to take advantage of it. Well, I was raised that when you make a promise, you stand by that promise. And if you want to break a promise, go ahead and break it, but I will not be part of breaking that promise. Period. That's where I stand.
Thank you.
Number one, there was never a discussion about 139 in those discussions, not ever. Now, they certainly didn't want anybody to compete because they have a monopoly, and they want to continue that monopoly. But nothing, and there's no deed restriction or anything in any documentation anywhere that, and 139 is just a part of getting commercialization, but there was never a discussion in those meetings with Atlanta about a 139. That term never came up.
Yeah,
So if you say you heard it from somebody, or I heard this, or I heard that, it's best to talk to the people that were in the meeting, rather than somebody that said they heard something.
I did talk to people in the meeting. I was told by a county attorney and other people that this is what they told me. And I've said over and over, look, I'll support a general aviation airport. To have a McCollum here in the county would be great. You know, McCollum doesn't have 139. Cartersville doesn't have 139. Gwinnett doesn't have 139. Peachtree DeKalb doesn't have 139. They all seem to be doing fine. They all create jobs, and I think we'll create more jobs that way than we ever will with commercial.
Amen.
That's where I stand.
That's beautiful, if you would go and do it. So far, you've done absolutely zero to help bring any industry.
We've done airport director supposed to be doing that. Why is it not a problem business?
Yeah.
That's right.
Really?
Yeah.
Policeman, it's not for y'all to talk. Discussion of this one. You know, when you look at a climate in a county, and I think we're coming out of a little bit of a recession and negative climate by getting this, the movie studio now has DreamWorks in, doing a brand new movie, and we have Fox here. We're coming out of this. And all I'm saying is there's a $50 million asset. If we want to McCollum, that's 50 times the amount of air traffic that we'd have if we had commercialization for 2 or 3 flights a week.
2 or 3 flights.
50 times. McCollum, I mean, if we can be in McCollum, God bless us.
All right.
Anybody else wishing to say anything on this one? Yeah.
Yes, sir. I do. You know, this payment was made last week. We wouldn't have this meeting. I asked the chairman if the payment was going to be made 15 minutes before the meeting because I thought maybe he was going to come. Mr. Smith was going to come and make the payment today. So I guess we had to have a meeting in order to do that. I call that a dog and pony show. Okay? Now, Mr. Smith, it was actually, and I'm glad that you're here. I'm glad that you spoke to us because that's the nicest conversation you've had with me since you got here. Was that conversation at the podium just then. And it was actually, you were invited here, if that's the case, 3 years and 8 months ago. That's what we know of. Could have been before that, could have been working on something before June 5th, 2012, when Gwinnett County said to leave. The 139 was probably, that terminology was probably not used in the discussions with the city of Atlanta when the land was sold. But I can tell you the discussions that were used, major airport, because that was the terminology that they used back in the 70s when you look at the deed, and that's what big commercial hubs were called, was major airports. Commercialization was used. Commercialization in passenger service was used. It was used in 2004 at a chamber meeting. And the bottom line is this: I've stood on 2 grounds the entire time. Broken promises, the way the deal was done. We've got some people that support commercialization. I've been criticized for throwing out the number 70% of the people in Post 2 oppose it, and I was corrected the other day. actually had an open records request done on it. Mr. Collette corrected me, and so did a couple other people that were involved in the survey. It was actually 74%. Those are the folks that I represent. When you go and you do something in a community like this, if this was, I've said it before, called the meeting, we're here to discuss the issues, I'm glad everybody's here. If this was so good for our community, we wouldn't be fighting about it. If this was the right thing for our community, we wouldn't be having meetings like this. If this was the right thing for our community, it would have been done out front in the public eye. Read something the other day about the terminal lease and airport use agreement. That was actually not what was passed in 2012. It was a silver comment agreement which was passed, not the terminal lease and airport use agreement. That's what it's titled. Don't you think if there were citizens in the room, which there were, that were in there at that time, and we talked about a terminal lease and an airport use agreement, don't you think some questions would have been asked? I've said it 100 times. History will prove. History will prove, no matter what happens with this issue, history will prove whether this was the right thing or whether this was the wrong thing. Mr. Smith agreed to make the payments. There's also supposed to be a $500,000 escrow account that was never put up. I've heard talks that all it was supposed to be put up for the first payment, it was supposed to be done this, it was supposed to that. I read it, and I've had other people read it as if the $500,000 escrow was supposed to be in the account, period. When the $400,000 bond was made last year this time, there was balloons and confetti. That's what he was supposed to do. That's what Silver Comet Propeller was supposed to do, was make that payment. I appreciate him making that payment. That's what he said he'd do. We shouldn't have had to have this meeting. We shouldn't have had to have a letter sent to us last week. It's nobody's fault that he didn't make the payment last week, except for his own. I didn't ask him not to make it. I don't think anybody else asked him. I don't blame him. If I was his investors, I'd want to pull out too. If I was his investors, I wouldn't want him to make any more payments. Look at what's going on. This has already been proven without a 139 that this is not good for our community. In November 2013, at the chamber breakfast in the basement of the chamber, Brett Smith talked to us and told us, gave us a lot of information about what was coming. 95% of what he said was something we could have already been doing. He said commercial, in fact, may not ever come. That's what he said. He said that the commercial is just a very small piece of the pie. So this long 2+ almost 2.5 year battle with myself, I said 2.5 years ago, I said if that's just a very small piece of the pie, why don't we forget the commercialization? All of us focus on this other thing that we can agree on, work together, and I think we can agree to move forward with that and everything's good. If we'd have done that 2.5 years ago, we wouldn't be having this argument. We wouldn't be having the bickering. We wouldn't be having the lawsuits. It wouldn't have happened. But that wasn't done. 95% of the pie could have been done. We haven't worked on. It was only a small piece. So why have we only worked on that small piece of the pie. I don't get it. We talk about bond ratings. We're here to talk about bonds and bond payments. I'm not surprised that we're here today and that that payment wasn't made last week. I'm frustrated because in '99, when this community voted against an airport, they voted for a reservoir. Here we are today dealing with bond payments. I want us to work together on what we can agree on.
Yes.
Work together on the reservoir and getting what we need then. I don't want something like this that we're battling out right here in business with a private company deter us from having a good bond rating. Because we've got the IBA and the Airport Authority and Propeller Investments not making their commitment. And we've got to go out and search for money for a reservoir, of which the voters voted for. But yet, we're battling to get this done for commercialization of an airport, of which the voters did not vote for. Mr. Smith asked me when this first started, when I was the Lone Ranger, why don't you just get on board and just let this happen? You know, in the environment that we have in our country today, with local government, state government, federal government, with the environment that we have and the people that we don't trust in our government, sometimes I see why people do the wrong thing, because it's easier just to sit there and let it go by. To do the right thing, you got to stand strong, sometimes stand alone and be there and do what's right for your community. And I can tell you, and if you think the last 2.5 years has been easy on my family, it hasn't been. It's been tough. It's been hard. But right is right and wrong is wrong. And our people in this community voted against commercial airport, voted against an airport, and were promised no commercial. If you'd have come before the community and asked to break the promise, maybe they would have allowed you. I don't know. But you didn't do it. And what was done in the dark comes out in the light.
Amen.
Yes.
And here we are today, still dealing with this. You can shake your head, but the bottom line is, folks, this community was promised no commercial airport. It was promised. And I don't have any other choice other than to stand strong and continue to fight against that. I do not, Mr. Smith, have a contract with you. This Board of Commissioners does not have a contract with you. And if you would have come to the Board of Commissioners also, Blake, and involved them in a public meeting and done it correctly, this might be a different story. There might be some people that are happy, some people that are not, but it would have been done in the public eye. And it didn't happen. And just because we're not successful out there at a general aviation airport doesn't mean that we take what we think is our valuable asset, the airport. I personally think our valuable asset is our people.
Amen.
And our dreams. You want to talk about what's valuable? That's what's valuable. People. People. That's what's valuable. Our green space that we have been given. And do the right thing and protect that. Should have been brought to the Board of Commissioners. I've always said the elected body that the folks vote in or vote out, it doesn't matter. That's where it should have been brought to. And if we can't make a general aviation airport successful, maybe we need to put somebody in charge of it that can make it successful.
Decent. Mr. Crowell, I believe you had something you wanted to say.
You finished up?
For now.
This meeting today, to me, is not about the airport. Make no bones about it, I don't support the commercialization of our airport. I'm not angry with Brett Smith for trying to come here and make money. That's what he does. I'm angry with our politicians that permitted this thing to get in the shape it's in because they didn't have any backbone or just wanted to go along and get along. To me, this is about democracy. I've talked to several people that support the airport, and I'd ask them, do you believe in democracy? The answer has always been, yes, I do. We have perverted and diluted the standards that our country was founded upon, democracy. If there's 3 of us in a room and we vote on something and 2 say yes, 1 says no, the majority wins. I've carried these notes around in my pocket ever since we had the EA. I was here in 1975. A lot of you weren't. I voted in 1975. I voted in 1999. Just to watch our local politicians ignore it and going about their business. And therefore, our democracy in Paulding County has been spat upon. These numbers are real for those of you who wonder, who want to drink from a polluted well, who has never pulled an open record request, but you've listened to somebody else and then went and shared that with people. In 1975, August the 26th, we voted. There's a total of 2,709 people showed up. To the bond money for the airport, for the landlord, 1,801 said no. 719 said yes. That's a difference of 1,082 votes. In 1975, our county wasn't as big as it is now, but nevertheless, they voted. It lay dormant until 1999. March the 16th of 1999, we had a special election. The airport was on it and the reservoir was on it. 1,628 said no. We're talking about to a general aviation airport. We said no. And 907 said yes. 721 people ruled. That was the majority. Once again, I'm not mad at Brett Smith, even though he made a run on my military record to discredit me. Carl, I appreciate you. You served in the same war I did. I appreciate anybody that served that country. I don't care who you are. Less than 8% of the male population, I don't know what it is, of the female population, that ever put the uniform on to serve this country. But I did. And I support the values of our country, and I fought for it. And I don't like to see them trampled. Just because somebody wants to go along with something to get along. I will never be caught doing that. This meeting was called today to take a shot at myself, Vernon Collette, and Todd. It ain't the first time I've been shot at. If you can support a government that tramples our nation's values, our democracy, you go right ahead. I'll not be that person. I'll stand for the people of this county. My slogan said it was about people and not politics. I I'm not varied from that 1 inch, on 1 step. I did everything I said I would do for the people who put me in office. Thank you.
Guys, when I came into office, 7 generations of Austins and Paces paying high taxes, carrying the burden, all on landowners and homeowners. I drove 52 miles one way for 27 years. I didn't want that for Paulding County, and I wanted to see everything we could do. When I got here, we were in the middle of the worst recession. We couldn't get 6 people in this room to help a situation. And people crying to me, I'm losing my house. People, home builders, they were losing everything they had. Everybody was crying, what are we going to do? And I said to my staff then, let's put everything on the table and just take a look at every opportunity that we have to bring this county out of a recession. So things began to happen. And I said, what I will do is I promised to help support and build the new hospital. And a different board supported the bonding, and we were very successful. And now it is in the second phase of being able to add 2 more floors. I had the state come in and talk to us about a film studio. I didn't have this idea all by myself. The state was working towards, and it has been difficult, but now things are starting to come back. And then as we started looking at the airport and that opportunity at a $47 to $50 million asset, and it's paid by FAA dollars on fees. So it's not a tax dollar, but it's a fee dollar. So some people say, well, that's a form of a tax. So if you think it is. So we began to put our ideas together to say, what can we do to make this airport successful? And again, general aviation was probably at its very, very low in 2009. And so as we began to build a hospital and do everything that we were doing to bring success to this county and bring jobs, and I think the hospital probably brought close to 400 jobs. And you know, as we started to have films here, and you know, people started looking at Paulding County, then outside forces started using their influence with high-priced attorneys, and people under oath said they didn't know where the money came from. That's defendants. They said they didn't know where it came from, but high-priced attorneys in Washington, D.C., high-priced attorneys from Atlanta area, and corporate money flew into our county to make sure Paulding County wasn't able to be successful. Hartsville Airport can be successful. City of Atlanta can be successful. Paulding County is not allowed to be successful. Now, when you say promises were made, when I came in here, I promised to pull us out of a recession. That's the promise I made to these people. And I promised to use every asset that we have. Now, you tell me what person, what businessman wouldn't take a $50 million asset and capitalize on it? I didn't build it. I inherited it. So I'm going to take that asset and make it be successful. Now, when you're up here and you hear people say, well, we need to do this, we need to do that, when they're not a part of the Chamber of Commerce, when they're not a part of economic development, when they're not a part of IBA or support any of those, how do you think we're going to be successful if those groups can't be successful in this climate? If we're sued and we're on TV and good gracious, look at all the handsome, I mean handsome looking news folks. Y'all may be from another city, but you're real good looking. So thank you for being here. But isn't it amazing what a crowd we can draw when there's corporate money that's spent out here by the millions? We have gone to Superior Court and won. We have gone to our Court of All Courts, and we won that. So we have been to court, and we have fought the fight, and they said, you can move forward. And that's all I'm trying to do. There's no payoff for me. In December, I'm done.
Yeah.
Come on, folks. You didn't interrupt us, folks. I'm rude. But, you know, where this goes means something to me, because there's generations coming behind me that I'd like to see Paulding County not be a bedroom community. Robert Reynolds is in here. He gave us a speech on if you're for a bedroom community, then you're for high taxes. If you're for bringing in industry and jobs, then you're for low taxes. Came right out of his mouth. He made that statement here, and he made it in hiring at the Paulding Business Association. But as long as they're high-priced attorneys and they're causing part of this county to sue another part of this county, and they keep that kind of stuff stirred up, who wants to invest in Paulding County? Who would want to come here when you say, go make it be successful in the middle of this climate? And the people that are unemployed, retired, and don't care about the future of Paulding County, they're happy to see that. I'm not. And I'm not for future generations that could take. And we've got a great aviation aerospace association. And they formed an association, and now they are doing terrific in their different companies. And why can't we take and capitalize on this? We're at a crossroads. We're at a time where we say, okay, the airport's here. I've heard it said, okay, let's become a McCall. Well, if we do, we'll have 50 flights a day, maybe more. That's good with me. That's what y'all want. Commercialization would have been much less than that.
Prove it.
Please, I didn't interrupt him. Y'all didn't get interrupted. That's just showing you raising. So I'm telling you, we've got an opportunity here to move forward. Stop lawsuits where one group of folks are suing another group of folks in our own county. Is that smart? Not one dime in this room. You know, people that don't like the airport now, hate my guts. No, I didn't know. You know, but I'm willing to do the right thing for Paulding County. I was willing to do the right thing by Brett Smith. This was not to make these guys look bad. God bless them. You know, I wish them all well. But it's about stopping the internal bickering, being able to take a check and not this county have to make that $363,000 payment. You heard Mr. Gamble say, why wouldn't we move on and do this? I mean, it's here. You know, I heard it explained by Jerry Bullitt one time. You have a baby and it's been birthed and it's out. There's no going back after that. Again, I took it over in the worst recession in history. Again, when 6 people would come in this room. So if you're mad, you should have been mad then and tried to come help Brett Johnston. And that's all I'm looking at. Nothing in it for me other than setting the atmosphere for our future generation. Anybody like you?
Yes, Mr. Chairman, I'd like to say something to the airport if I could. Directed to you guys specifically, I appreciate what you do. I appreciate the time you take out of your personal life to serve. You may or may not know this, but a year ago when I took office, one of the first things that came up was that we should remove you guys. I was really torn about that and didn't know where I stood. Part of me wanted to. But then at the time, Commissioner Carmichael was up here and he spoke and said that we should honor the commitment we make to you guys. We changed your lives, set in motion your schedule so that you could do and serve properly. And that made an impact on me. I felt like God spoke to me right then and said, you know, you're about honoring commitments and promises, and that's a promise you need to honor also. And so I had to talk to Todd and tell him, no, hey, I couldn't support on this, and that I wasn't going to vote to remove you guys. Now, I did that, and I feel like by doing that, I was consistent in the way that I voted. I'm upholding the other promises, and I uphold the promise to you. And now I'd like to ask you guys something. When I sit here on this board and I look at you, this is what I see. I see a board that is controlled by Blake Swafford. I do not see a board that votes on its own, that thinks on its own, that's transparent, and is open in front of the public. I would like to challenge you to be more open, to make sure that the public is aware of what's going on, and to make sure that Blake's under your control, and he's not controlling you. Now, I want to say one more thing, and this is kind of geared to you, Mr. Chairman. It seems like when you ran the first time for the chairmanship, I believe that you used the airport as a negative to help win.
Yes.
You were actually against the airport at that time.
Yes.
Somewhere along the line, it's changed, and that's good.
No, I said I didn't build this airport. I would have built a reservoir before I would have built a airport. That came right out of my mouth.
I understand. I just want to make note that you were against the airport at that time.
I went against the airport. I said I would have built a reservoir before I built an airport because we were in that kind of desperate need.
Okay, thank you.
It's built. The baby's out there. And, you know, I want to see us look forward, not backward. You know, the number was brought up, there were 2,709 people that voted or were in the county. There's 155,000 people. And people say to me, well, I drove to Lockheed every day, or I drove to General Motors, or I drove to Ford every day. It's good enough for me, it's good enough for them. Well, there's millions or more cars out there today that makes that commute awful. You've got Mr. Butler here that is invested in Paulding County, that his family has put infrastructure in place and creating jobs. That's what we like to see here with this film studio, with the airport, with a hospital. There's a lot of ways that we can grow Paulding County. And again, you know, I said from the very beginning, I didn't build this. I inherited it. All I can do is look at it and say, what can we do? What can we do to make it be as successful as possible? You say, well, what if you don't get the 139? Well, I'm challenging you. If we go out to work and I tie your hand behind your back and say, you go do the same amount of work that Cobb County's doing over there when they don't have passenger service. Well, they do have passenger service. They are a port of entry. They do have a customs office, so they can fly in there. That is a customs office. So, you know, you go compete with that, but what we want you to do is tie your hand behind your back and go out there and try to do the same amount of work with one hand tied behind you. So that's very hard to do, or you go make this airport be successful, but you can't do this, 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 and this. And you go be competitive with PDK. You go be competitive with McCall, and you go fight for that business. And when people come in here and they're looking at us, I'm very much a part of the chamber, very much a part of economic development. I pulled 100 people in a room probably in the first month in office. Mr. Crow asked me, said, whose bright idea was that? I said, it was mine, and it was 100 other people. Businessmen that said, let's move forward, hire an economic developer to help us bring in industry.
How did that work out for you?
Not having the support of your board of commissioners is pretty bad. It's pretty sad and it's pretty bad when you get up every day and you figure out some kind of way for something not to happen, rather than get out and support your chamber, support your economic development, and support your industrial building authority, which was set up in 1962, bonding capability to be able to move us forward and bring some industrial growth to Paulding County. We can't sustain the number of houses that are being developed have been developed on what we're doing today unless we include industry, every area. And again, I'm saying, don't tie our hand behind our back. And that's what's happening when you do lawsuits, and there's an unlimited amount of money, of negative money, to keep us from being successful. Unlimited amount. And there's only a little bit that we've got to move forward with to try to help this county to be successful.
Well, I was with you on your first race. I supported you. I supported you because of what you stood for.
And I supported you.
You did. You did support building the reservoir. And you did talk negatively in the community about the airport. In fact, if you did everything that you said you were going to do about the airport, I don't know that we have the same director here right now. I know that's a little harsh. Some people may say whatever. This is where the business of the county has to go on if we're going to talk. If we're going to talk. We've got the airport director. It's also the IBA director. We got the airport authority here today, and a lot of them sit on the IBA. Y'all need to make some decisions. I've asked Lonnie to draw up some things for next Tuesday and work on some things with me that I'd like to present to this board. Okay? Changing the authorities. It's something that the steering committee, of which a few of them are in the room today, it's pretty much the steering committee's recommendations that were made. Having the airport director and the IBA director be the same person is not working. We've done some good things in this community. I'm thankful to be a part of it. And there's not a day go by that I'm not very thankful and honored and humbled to be able to hold this position. There's also haven't been too many days gone by where it's been easy. We did support the hospital. That's an easy thing to support. Something that every community needs, every community deserves, and our community has wanted for a long time. And we got a little pushback on a few things with bonds or whatever, but we supported the hospital. I voted for that. But when it comes to the film studio that we voted for at the second meeting in March 2011, in the corporate hangar, the second meeting in March 2011, in the water tower, I voted against it. I personally don't think that government is to be out there creating jobs. I think we need to help do what we can do for the private sector to come in here and do what they need to do. I think we need to help, all right? And we need to work on creating jobs with the private sector if it's good for our community. And I made that statement from day one, if it's good for our community. But if we're not going to do things out front, if we're not going to bring it to the people and talk about it and discuss it out front, and we got to have 2-day retreats and early morning meetings and different things in order to do it, that's not good for our community. I supported you when you ran the first time because of what you said you were going to do. I don't think this government has done a whole lot to bring us out of the recession. I think we're coming out of the recession. I think our nation is working hard. I think the private sector is doing what they can do, and I think we're moving through it. And history shows that you go through tough times and then you get some better times to follow. I don't mean that to be negative to say that this board or the last board, Mr. Austin, has not done anything, because we've done some good things. But bringing commercialization here to this county with that airport was not on your platform. And making this airport successful as general aviation, you talk about that. Successful general aviation. And if that commercial is such a small piece of the pie, why can't we get rid of the commercial and move on with what everybody else agrees on with, which I think would make both sides pretty darn happy, if we could just get rid of that. There is no reason for us to continue on. Mr. Smith came here today and he's got a check. I'm not real clear, I guess he intends to give that to the airport authority, but I'm not real clear if he intends to do it, if there were some strings attached, or maybe I just didn't hear him quite right. But it wasn't like the presentation happened right now. But if the airport authority receiving that check is conditionally upon Todd Pownell not fighting against commercial airport, that's not going to happen. I don't have an agreement with Propeller. I don't have an agreement with Propeller. If Propeller and Silver Comet want to pay that bond, they need to pay it because the contract says they need to pay it. They don't need to pay it and say, hey, we're going to pay it, but we want you to back down. Because that's not going to happen. I've been here 20-something years. When I grew up, my father was transferred around and we didn't have a home place that I lived at for a long time. So this is home to me. Came here, never left. I'm here. This is what I consider my town, my hometown. That's what I consider my hometown. Where I was born and transferred and moved around with my father, we didn't have a home. It was our hometown. So this is it. So if giving that check is conditionally upon myself backing down from the commercialization, it's not going to happen. And as far as I hear it time and time again about the folks that have the lawsuits and the money and the whatever, I've been told through the grapevine that they were offered to know who it was and they chose not to. So look here. And if that's the case, I'll tell you this, it's a prime example. I'm thankful for the people that are helping us fight this battle. Because if not, big government would just roll right over us.
That's right.
Amen.
That's what would happen. That's what would happen. Big government would roll right over us.
That's right.
You know, Blake's integrity has been brought into this meeting today and in past meetings. You're taking a local boy that came up forward, struggled, served in the Army. In the Army, he was an air traffic controller. He went on to get his degree, and he went on to get his engineering degree, and it's a local boy named Doug. One of a few of us that came up in our Paulding County schools and then came back to serve that same county and give his arm. Now, Mr. Pownell is correct. He wanted me, when he supported me, to fire 5 people. He named them for me. Well, I was one of them.
Be careful what you say.
Now, listen,
I'm just telling you this. You need to
I
be
didn't interrupt
careful.
you. I didn't interrupt
I know,
you.
and I'm interrupting you. You need to be
You brought
careful
it up.
what you say when you bring out names, because that statement's not correct at all.
5 people he wanted me to fire. I brought those people in a room, and I asked certain things of them. And they did what I asked them to. Now, I'm not going to fire somebody that I've been told to by somebody else if they do what I asked them to do. I didn't have on in my platform a recession. I hadn't planned for one. It wasn't part of what I wanted to do. So I came in here taking every asset this county had available to it to go be successful, as we could get out there and do. And Mr. Pownell is correct. He did not and does not have an agreement with Propel. He has an agreement with them to make sure that we're not competing with Hartsville or with Atlanta. You want to keep doing insults, or you want to?
No, I don't want to
stay
keep
in the
doing insults at all, but I do want to make a couple things clear. That's ludicrous what you just said. At no time did I ever give Mr. Austin a list of 5 employees to fire. Mr. Austin made his own list as he traveled the community and he talked to people. There may have been some people on there that some people agreed with that probably needed to go for one reason or another, but he made his own list. This doesn't need to come to that, but I'm not going to leave this meeting with that being said, because that is false. And when it comes to Delta, I'm tired of hearing about it. I'm tired of you saying it. I'm wore out with it. Absolutely, absolutely, absolutely in no form or fashion do I have anything to do with Delta. In fact, I'm scared to fly. All right? I don't like it. And that is absolutely ludicrous that you would continue to push that out and pretend like that. My wife and I live and work in this community. We struggle just like everybody else. We're no different than anybody else. And there's weeks that we can't wait for Friday to get here for our paycheck. Because we needed it last Friday. So for you to throw out that and abuse my family in my name about anything like that is wrong. I'm asking you not to do that anymore. Show me proof. You have waived papers. You have asked people to do open records. You have done, do it. Do all you want. That is uncalled for, and that's exactly what what you call opportunity to use this asset has done to our community. And you and I shouldn't be doing this. We shouldn't be having this conversation. And I don't expect to hear that from you anymore about me or my family taking any kind of money from somebody. I am wore out with it. I have
Worn
been,
out,
I've been
you're saying secret
accused,
meetings too, when there was never a meeting.
I have been
Come out of your mouth
accused of
several
things,
times.
and it will continue to come out of my mouth, because that's what happened. Thank you.
Folks, we're going to adjourn, and I'll ask for a motion to adjourn. I'll make the motion to adjourn. Is there a second?
Second.
All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
We're out. Thank you.
Thank you, Commissioners.